Being alone is not the same feeling as loneliness. I used to get the two confused time again. But in fact, as I've gone on my journey of finding my purpose, finding what matters to me, and living the most fulfilled life, I realized loneliness has an entirely different meaning than being alone. Along this journey, you're going to find being alone is actually very common amongst others who have gone along the journey of finding their purpose. Now, when you're alone, it actually gives you time to self-reflect. As men, especially men when we're under 29, we have to embrace the alone factor that comes with finding our greater sense of purpose and passion in this life. Now, loneliness is very different for one of two reasons. When you're lonely, you get a sense of sad feeling. Okay? It's more of a feeling than a state of being. When you're alone, that's just where you are in the current moment. And it's a good thing. And it's good to embrace it. When you're feeling that loneliness, most time people relate it to having a sad feeling. Now, second, being lonely, people mainly look at it as a negative factor. But I agree in this sense that when you get that state of loneliness, it definitely is negative, because then you get all the bad thoughts of, is my life even worth it? What am I on this journey for? What is the meaning of life? Why do I wake up every morning and do this job that I hate? I wake up, I don't even have a job. I wake up, I feel like shit. Anything can lead to this negative mind frame. But when you reframe it as being alone, you're going to realize this is actually part of going through your journey. And you'll even look back. I remember I got the two confused when I was right in the middle of it. I remember late nights doing DoorDash. I was in school. This was like a part-time thing. I'm out here doing DoorDash, and not the greatest in neighborhoods either. And I'm doing these. I'm going on long drives, and in the thick of it, I felt lonely. Because one, I needed the money, and two, I really didn't have that much friends, that I could hang out with. And so I used to DoorDash, and trips would be like maybe 20, 30 minutes. And everyone knows driving at night is way different, like just state of feeling versus driving in the daylight. It's just something different, And, I thought I was so lonely, but in that time, I was really just alone as I discovered more of who I am during these days, right? And so that's the main point that I want to get across, okay? So, I remember feeling like an outcast. When you're in the thick of it, if you're getting the two confused, as in you're thinking being alone is the same as loneliness, that means you're right in the thick of it. And what you're going to feel during that time is the fact you're going to feel like an outcast, right? When a couple years ago, when I was in school, I felt like the typical party scene and what people did to have fun, typical college life, it wasn't fulfilling to me. And I thought something was wrong with me because I'm on the outside of everything. Everybody's in the circle. Everybody's got their own, friend group, people they relate to, and feel like I'm out here, right? And that outcast feeling is definitely looks like loneliness. But in fact, that being alone period when I was here was actually just the start of becoming a more fulfilled person, because I wasn't in this circle that's full of distractions and vices. And though at the time, when I was right in the thick of it, when I was right in the middle of it, I couldn't see it. You can't tell, where you're at in a forest, from like you can't tell from a tree from a forest, that one second, right? When you're in it. But if you're bird's eye view and you see, you kind of see your way out. But in the thick of it, when you're in the jungle, when you're in that forest, you think there's a million trees, but really you're actually closer to your fulfilled life. Okay? So, during this time, when I had this feeling, being alone, being lonely, I never really brought it up to anybody. Really, friends, family, nobody really knew. I had these feelings. And I know you probably have the same feeling that I did. Because if you're like me, you didn't want to be a Debbie Downer. Right? One of them people, that just kind of brought down the mood of everyone. So whether it's a family event, over the holidays or a birthday or something like that, I try to uplift people and almost put on an act that, everything's okay, my life's all right. But, I didn't want to talk about the problem, that I was feeling so alone, like a 20-year-old kid feeling so lost in life. It's not brought up enough in today's age. And I'm trying to bring this out into light, that it is okay if you're 20, 29, and you feel alone, because you're not the only one. And it's swept under the rug so many times that I feel like we need to bring this out more, because anybody that was feeling like me in this time, where you feel lonely, but you're actually just alone, it's your journey of finding your purpose. So hanging out with friends or family, you don't want to bring others down, which is why you never brought it up, your feeling of being alone, being lonely, right? It's almost laughable if you say, man, you're kind of a grown man, once you hit 20. I consider that grown. You're over 20 now, pretty much a grown man, and you want to talk about your problems, lonely. And of course, there's bigger problems in the world. I'm sure if you told every single person in your circle, your friends, your family, and you tell them one problem that you have, whether, you're going through a stage of like questioning life, You don't know the meaning of anything. You're trying to get through finding like a true passion. And you explain this struggle. Your struggle is going to look like this on a scale compared to theirs. Anybody you tell can always outbeat your struggle, right? And it kind of undermines the thing that you're going through. Because if it's compared like that, well then, yeah, compared to other people's problems, they got like a family member passing or anything could happen. Well then, yeah, your problem of feeling lonely in life doesn't really look like anything. But truth of the matter is, if you're a guy and you're in that stage, once you're grown, 20, 29, and you go through this lonely phase and it's swept under the rug, I realize it only leads to a worse outcome in life. Because you drag your emotions, you bottle in your emotions of what you really want out of this life. And it gets bottled up and it gets turned into misery. And when it's turned into misery, that's when things out of control happen. That's when the vices start spiraling down, getting worse. 1 drink a day turns into 2, to 3, to 5. It gets worse. It can always get worse, right? So I'm trying to bring light to that. I want to go over, it's kind of funny nowadays. Like there's no relatability to anybody. When I go over, when I was feeling like that lonely chapter in my life, like nobody really relates to me. And it's kind of sad in a sense, because it made me feel like it wasn't a problem, or I shouldn't even care about what I want out of this life. I should just do what the world tells me to do instead of what I actually want to do in the world. When nobody relates to this, everybody accepts what's given to them. And this is not a good thing. You don't want to accept your fate. We've been told a lie ever since we started school. And for 18 years, we've been brainwashed to, okay, go to school, finish your classes. I mean, I probably could have been done with school in 6th, 7th grade, honestly. I learned everything I needed to learn. All the extra stuff, I didn't need that. The pre-calc, algebra, stupid science classes, I don't remember any of it. Truth be told, that's when your mind is the most elastic in those ages, right? So leading up until you're 18, your brain is super elastic. And that's how they mold you and shape you into society today, to keep the system running. When you keep the system running, it keeps you distracted because you're in it for so long. Meaning, you work that shitty factory job 40 hours a week. It's just enough to distract you from your goals, your dreams. What brings fulfillment to your life? I work as a truck driver, and I go to like these mills because I drive a big boy truck. That's my big truck. I got a big flatbed on the back, right? So when I drop off, I do steel and aluminum. And mostly it's like mills, factories, like just like stinky like factories inside. Like it's like you smell the grease. It's hard working conditions. And I know every single person in there. Nobody's passionate about doing that. Nobody. I can guarantee nobody wakes up in those jobs and like, yeah, let's go to work today, And there's guys there that are in good moods. they're good people, but deep down, I can tell, like, nobody. It goes back to being a kid. You know, what did you want to do when you were a kid, right? What was your childhood like dream? Whether dream job or dream goal, whatever, right? I guarantee 10 out of 10 times, nobody in there said, yeah, I want to work at a greasy, stinky factory and make barely enough to make ends meet. Yet nobody said that. And it got me thinking, like, when I'm doing this, right? So going back, nobody questions kind of this lie that we're told about, you know, they say chase your dreams, but there's no like emphasis on it. Emphasis meaning, okay, let's actually take action on doing it, right? They say chase your dreams, but yeah, just remember, set your alarm for 6 o'clock tomorrow, because you gotta go to work, buddy. And you know, the weekend, I mean, you just busted your ass the past 5 days, like, you know, just enjoy yourself, you know, catch up, get ready for the next 5 days with your 2-day break, right? So I went through this phase, and I couldn't relate to anybody. You know, like, even my family. Love them and all, but everybody just has a dead-end job. And for me, I knew that couldn't be my path. Now, my job, driving truck, it's not the worst job, right? It gets the bills paid. But it's not my purpose, right? It doesn't make me entirely fulfilled. Like, on a 10 out of 10 meter fulfillment, I might just be a like 4 out of 10. Driving truck, which, you know, it's better than some people, right? I know when I was doing, like, even working 8 hours, because my shifts are probably like 10 to 12 hours, and, you know, I'm cool because it's a lot of time alone, so I get to spend time listening to like podcasts I enjoy, or hopping on the phone, you know, just bullshitting with people just about whatever, honestly, which is cool, right? While making money at the same time. So it's somewhat cool, which is why I say that. But I just remember all the other jobs I had, like, my worst job, I don't know, I think I rank them all equally terrible. You know, I did Amazon for a bit. I worked at like a landscaping company. I worked at a pizza shop, Wingstop, Walmart. And I just remember the time going by so slowly. And really what you got to think about is what makes the time go fast? What makes the time pass by for you? Right? If you work 8 hours in a factory and you think 4 hours just went by, and you look at the clock and it's only been 45 minutes, that job's trash. But it just seems like nowadays, as young men, no one around us has like this same mindset, right? So when we get this loneliness feeling, it's not actually loneliness. It's just being in your alone phase. Because your family, your friends, even people you're dating, they're not gonna understand what you're trying to accomplish. That your life can actually have meaning. You can actually do something you love and make money and do it for the rest of your days. You don't have to be miserable working a job that you hate. You don't. But even my family, the people, my bloodline, you know, the people that are closest to you, your family, is not going to understand. And so it leads me to the last thing, that my YouTube algorithm, it's crazy that it kind of knows me better than my friends and family. I'll get recommendations on like self-improvement and doing better in life, striving, like striving for goals, being more purpose driven, finding passion. All these, YouTube brings it up, which I just find insane, because compared to my family and my friends, I have one close brother to me that we talk about goals and self-improvement and things like that. But other than that, my family, we don't talk about this. Right? We hardly even talk about even like money, let alone talking about goals, none of that. So I just want you to know you're not alone in this journey. And about the YouTube algo, like, it probably knows you better than your closest family or friends, right? Which is why this video probably got brought up to you, which is insane, because you probably had nobody in your life, not a friend, not a family member, that even brought up, this chapter of your life, going through it alone, especially as a young man. If you're under 29, as a man, you're going to go through this alone chapter, and you will get it confused, feeling loneliness. But just know they're not the same. And it truly gets better once you dedicate yourself to actually finding what makes you fulfilled in this life. If you sweep it under the rug, if you don't take action, nothing will get done. Nothing changes if nothing changes.